If you're watching this video, you probably don't really enjoy studying. And that's kind of an issue because as a student, studying is just part of your job. So in this video, we're gonna walk through exactly where that issue comes from and what you can do to trick your brain so that you actually enjoy studying. First of all, my name is Spencer and I've got straight A+ for the last 3.5 years of my studies in engineering, making me the top student of my year. And part of the reason why I've done so well is because of my ability to train my brain to actually enjoy the process of studying. So why don't you enjoy studying? Well, it's probably because your reward system is fried. And your reward system is fried because you've been overstimulated, which makes real life, which includes your studies, less enjoyable. You've been overstimulated by video games or YouTube or TV or movies or probably your phone. And when you're constantly being stimulated by these things, when you have a 5-hour screen time or you have to play video games every day or you need to watch TV every day before you go to bed, when you're constantly being overstimulated by all of these things, it makes real life, makes the work less enjoyable because those things aren't inherently as stimulating. Generally, bad habits just make good habits less enjoyable. So for example, scrolling on Instagram Reels makes studying less enjoyable. Eating junk food makes eating good food less enjoyable. Playing too many video games makes reading less enjoyable. In each scenario, the bad habit makes the good habit less enjoyable, and that's because the bad habit is highly stimulating and the good habit typically isn't. And so when you go from a highly stimulating activity to a lower stimulating activity, the lower stimulating activity is just going to be less enjoyable in the moment, even though it might be better for you overall. So you might be asking then, well, why? Why is it an issue then? If scrolling is just more enjoyable and more stimulating than doing work, why don't I just do the more enjoyable thing? Well, of course, we know that the good habits are good for us, but honestly, you're probably going to get more enjoyment from the good habits anyways, even though the bad habits are more immediately enjoyable. So let's see that with an example. All right, so I'm going to draw a quick plot here. All right, so on the bottom axis, we've got our time, and on the vertical axis, we've got your enjoyment. And let's say that your baseline enjoyment is something like this. All right, you've got a line across the middle here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to compare two scenarios. We're going to show how, in the end, choosing the good habits will lead to a higher enjoyment than choosing the bad habits, even though the bad habits are more immediately stimulating. So let's see. We're going to walk through the example of eating good food versus eating bad food that we talked about earlier. So let's start by considering the scenario where person A eats bad food. Okay, so they're going about their day, all right? And at this time here, they decide to eat some junk food. Maybe they eat their potato chips, maybe they eat their donut, whatever it is, all right? And inherently, these things are meant to taste good. So they spike your enjoyment for a period of time. But importantly, what happens after, all right? After you eat the donut, or after you eat too much junk food, you probably don't feel too good about it. It tasted good in the moment, but you don't feel good that you actually did that. And your enjoyment actually dips below your baseline because everything else around you isn't going to be as good if you're used to that highly stimulating thing, which in this case was food. And so now you're going about your day, all right? And now, again, it's time to eat. And now you're eating, like, let's say you eat some, like, cookies or something. I don't know what it is. Let's see. So you're eating cookies, boom, spiked up, all right? And of course, what happens again? You're used to eating the more highly stimulating food, so now anything else you eat won't be as enjoyable, and also it doesn't feel good to eat the cookie. So now your enjoyment goes back down. And look at you. You are now below your baseline enjoyment significantly. And here's the interesting thing. So now you decide that it's time to eat some good food. So you cook up some eggs, some steak, whatever it is. And interestingly, because you're used to these like highly stimulating foods, all right, like this. This was a cookie over here, and that was a cookie, and this was like a donut or something, right? Because you're used to these highly stimulating foods that aren't good for you. When you go to eat something that actually is good for you, your brain is still used to that more highly stimulating food, that food that tastes better. And so you don't enjoy that good food as much. You barely get an increase in the enjoyment from that. Even though it was a good meal, anybody would be happy to eat good food like that. But because you're used to the bad food, the good food doesn't taste as good. Good food, all right? And so now look at what we have here. Even though we had these spikes of enjoyment where you were like positive with these bad foods, you can see in the end, we're pretty actually in the negatives here. You are not enjoying your time that much here because look at you. You're like, you've gone down this much spaces, right? Now, I'm just going to put on the same graph. Let's say we have person B and they are eating good food every time. Instead of the bad, good, they're going to eat good, okay? So person B gets to the same time, he eats whatever it is, like some chicken thighs and broccoli or something, all right? And so if you're not like being constantly overstimulated, it's food, it tastes pretty good, right? And so it doesn't taste as good as the cookie or the donut or whatever it is, it doesn't taste immediately as good, but it tastes all right. So you spike up, all right? But importantly, you're happy that you ate this food. You're happy that you ate good food that gives your body energy, that might fuel your workout, or that might, allow you to build more muscle. And so instead of spiking down, like what happened after you eat the cookie or the donut or whatever it is, right? You kind of just stay the same. And so what happens the next time you have to eat, all right? If you eat good food again, you go up your enjoyment, all right? And next time we go to eat, notice at this time, when the person who was eating bad food decided to eat good, he got a little spike from it. It boosted his enjoyment a little bit, but not too much, right? And that's because he was so used to the bad food. Now in this scenario, person B is not used to the bad food, so it tastes just as good as it did before. And so now look at this. Just look at the big difference that choosing to eat healthy made for person B compared to eating bad for person A, right? Person A dipped all the way down here. They dipped like 2 steps in enjoyment. Person B went up like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all right? And so yes, it is totally true that right here, the cookie tasted better than whatever healthy food the other person had. Like it's true, all right? But look at overall. Look at where we are overall. Person A had a few spikes above baseline enjoyment, we called it. Person B has spent so much time above it. And funnily enough, person B, the one who's eating healthy, spent so much time above the peak that A even got from just eating the cookie. And so overall, you're going to get more enjoyment from doing the good habits than from the bad habits, even though the bad habit gives you a steeper increase in your enjoyment immediately. And so you can totally see how this is going to apply to school. With school, we can draw the same graph. And so you have one person who, when they're supposed to study, they go and scroll on social media instead. And so they get a quick spike in the enjoyment, but it goes back down because it doesn't feel good to scroll. You always feel like you wasted time after. And then they continue on, and maybe they skip the gym to go to McDonald's and they get a quick spike from that, then they end up back here because they ate junk food, and they feel bad that they missed the gym, so they dip even further below, and then they're here, and now they ended their day here. Can you see how making bad decisions brings your overall enjoyment and fulfillment down? If you have the same scenario here, and instead of scrolling when they're supposed to study, they just study, studying isn't that enjoyable, but I swear, if you're not so used to being overstimulated, it does feel good getting work done, especially if it's something that you kind of like. And so maybe you go up to here in enjoyment. It's not quite the big increase that eating the good food might, but it's something, all right? And so now when it's time approaches to go to the gym, suppose you go to the gym. Well, the gym is a pretty fun activity. I would say so myself. And so you don't get quite the same spike that you would get from skipping to go eat some like burgers from McDonald's or whatever with some friends. But it feels pretty good. So you get a pretty steady increase right there. And now you go through the rest of the day. And now look at this, the big difference we have between the person who did the good habits versus the person who did the bad habits. And so you can see how even these small steps like studying right here, it made a difference. It increased your overall enjoyment and it boosted your dopamine or whatever it was, right? Compared to skipping, which puts you higher, but then now you're in the negatives after. All right, so I hope that helps you see how the heavily stimulating content is just going to make you enjoy real life less. So I frame the issue now. If you want to actually enjoy studying and enjoy your work, you need to decrease the amount of stimulation that your brain is getting from bad habits. And so because of this, a few years ago, the idea of a dopamine detox resurfaced, where for like a few days or a few weeks or a month, you would just completely abstain from bad habits. You wouldn't go on social media, you wouldn't play video games, you wouldn't drink, you wouldn't eat junk food, you wouldn't stay up late, all of these things. And instead, you'd replace them with good habits like journaling, meditation, exercise, getting into nature, things like this. And the idea was that you would be able to undo all the programming that the overstimulation was doing to your brain. So let's look at this graph again, okay? Now, suppose we had our baseline, which was right here, okay? And prior to the detox, your baseline is just way down here because you've been so accustomed to the bad habits. The idea with the detox is that for, call it a 2-day period, you could remove all the bad habits, introduce the good habits, and increase your enjoyment back up to where it should be. So let's take a look at that here. So suppose we go in the detox for a period of time like this. Let's say this is our detox period, all right? So our enjoyment is pretty low right here, but now the detox comes and you're doing good habits for, let's say that this is 1 weekend, okay? So at the beginning, the good habits don't feel that good because you're used to the bad habits, so you get these slight increases. So maybe towards the end of the weekend, you're really enjoying your reading or whatever you're doing, and you're up here now, okay? So the issue with the short-term detox is that where do you go from here? If I just go straight back to making my bad decisions, then of course I spike and I go back down, and then I spike again and I go back down, and I go like this and I spike and I go back down, and look, I'm back to where I started. So there's a flaw in the idea of a shorter-term detox. Like, consider this. Think about a person who's trying to lose weight, all right? This is their weight, and this is their time. Are you really going to tell them that they can eat whatever they want for 5 days a week, and then for the weekend they should detox and eat clean? Let's just see what that looks like. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days in the week. Call these 2 days the weekend, okay? So suppose this person has a goal weight right here, and they are currently right here. I don't know, okay? So they eat clean for the weekend because they're on their detox, and their weight goes down, I don't know, call it this much, all right? Now they don't eat clean for the rest of the week. So what happens? They go right back to where they started, right? And now the weekend comes and they dip back down, but they probably don't even dip down as much as they should because it's so hard to just turn good habits on with the flick of the switch, especially if you're so used to the bad habits. And so the idea of this short-term detox just doesn't make sense because your brain is still going to be so used to the bad habits. So you just need something that's more sustainable long-term, which is quitting or reducing bad habits and implementing good habits. Now, of course, bad habits aren't easy to quit. Bad habits typically come from a bad mental, and a bad mental typically comes from bad habits. So it's kind of like a chicken and the egg scenario, and it can be hard to solve. But you can definitely start somewhere. So let's say your screen time is 7 hours right now. Well, you know what? You maybe can't bring it back down to 1 in 1 week. But what you could do is, over the course of a week, get it down to 6 hours. And then over the course of another week, get it down to 5. Over the course of another week, get it down to 4. And slowly, by progressively overloading your bad habits out, then you gain that momentum and you gain that mental boost that is going to help you. If you're not already, you should be checking the screen time on your phone. You should just be able to open the settings and turn it on. From there, you can put time limits on if that's what you want to do. Another good thing is there's an app called ScreenZen. It doesn't actually block you from going on apps, but it just adds an extra barrier. You can add a delay time to opening apps. So for example, on Instagram, I have like a 10-second delay on the app. And so when I go to open Instagram, it takes 10 seconds to open. And yeah, it's kind of annoying, but sometimes in those 10 seconds, I'll realize that I didn't actually want to go on Instagram and it was just habitual. So something like that helps you be more intentional with your screen time. Because if you actually do want to go on, you'll press it and you'll wait the 10 seconds to go on. Another thing you can experiment with is just playing around to see which habits are actually good for you and which ones aren't. Like for example, a lot of people say that they need to go on their phone before they sleep to help wind down. Well, be honest with yourself. Is that actually helping you? It's probably not, right? The screen time is not good for falling asleep. And also, when you see different things on your phone, it's going to stimulate your brain, which is going to make it harder to sleep. So you got to think which habits are actually serving you. Why don't you replace that screen time with reading or journaling or something that's less stimulating? Because we know when you choose the less stimulating things that are good for you, you're going to enjoy the other things that are less stimulating, which are good for you more, such as studying, which is all about what this was about. It was how to enjoy studying more. And of course, this can be hard. Like you might not always feel like doing the good habit, but as you do more and more good habits, it's exponential. And the more good habits you do, they become easier and easier and more enjoyable because they improve your mental, which helps you enjoy the good habits more. And soon enough, you're just going to find it easy and actually enjoyable to sit down and get some studying done. I know it might seem like a boring life for some of you, but wouldn't it be nice to have the things that are good for you be things that you're interested in and things that you enjoy? To me, that's just a no-brainer because the more you enjoy the things that are good for you, the more you're going to want to do them. Now, of course, when you first cut out these bad habits, you might be bored for a time. You might not know what to do with your time, but your brain will find you something productive and fulfilling to do, like studying, and you're going to actually enjoy that. But it just takes removing the bad habit for your brain to find something to fill it with. You need to create the space before you can fill it. Okay, so that's it. I hope that with this video, you can start to enjoy your studies a little bit more.